I grew up in a privileged home. I lived in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And I remember I was 9 years old when I got to go into the city with my mom, and it was with her friend. And we were walking down the street on our way to a fancy restaurant. But as we were walking by, there was a man who was standing on the side of the street, and he basically was speaking out to people saying, "I'm hungry, I haven't eaten in 3 days, could you help me?" And he looked me in the eye and asked me, "Could you help me?" We went to the restaurant, and I sat there and, had a hamburger in front of me, and I had no hunger because I was thinking so much about that man on the street. And my mom noticed that and understood what was going on, and she basically said, "Do you want to find him?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And so we put the hamburger in a doggy bag, a to-go bag, and walked the streets in the evening of San Francisco looking for this man who I wanted to give my hamburger to. And turns out we never actually found him, but my mom walked with me for a good 20 minutes, block by block, looking for him. And I think in a lot of ways I'm still looking for him. I'm still trying to find those people whose voices have been lost in the crowd. And I've seen what happens when we actually apply our skills and the gifts that God has given us to actually serve and love. My name is Jena Lee Nardella, and I'm the Executive Director for Bloodwater Mission, co-founder. Bloodwater Mission is a grassroots organization that empowers communities to work together against the HIV/AIDS and water crises in Africa. And so we are thrilled to see what's happening when you actually empower local leaders to do the work on their own. And you go to these places and you hear these stories of people whose lives have completely changed. I met Jars of Clay the fall of my senior year, and they had just started Bloodwater Mission.
The initial vision was around 2002. I had taken a trip to Africa, and I was there because we had been approached as a band to start talking about HIV and AIDS.
So Jars of Clay saw the connection between HIV/AIDS and water and realized that people whose immune systems are so weak needed clean water to survive. And so that was their beginning vision, and I met them as a passionate college student. I wanted to help them make that a reality.
Jars had been traveling around the country and doing these symposiums, and a lot of where we were playing in that season was college campuses. And Jena was a senior that year, and she was kind of hosting us. And so when we wanted to do a symposium, she was the one that kind of put it all together for us and helped organize the event.
And I met them through a mutual friend, heard Dan's vision for Bloodwater Mission, and was so excited about what it could become and what kind of difference we could make in Africa.
A week and a half, almost 2 weeks later, in the mail I get this 22-page proposal about how she thinks Bloodwater Mission can operate. Well, a week later I got a revised version of it. So she'd even spent more time on it, and so I was pretty impressed with it, and we brought it to the band.
The band calls it the 25-page manifesto, which is basically what it was. And it was all of my ideas on how we could take this vision of Bloodwater Mission and actually turn it into a reality.
So we brought Jena to Nashville. We called her and said, "Hey, what do you think about moving to Nashville for a little while and just taking some of these ideas that you put together and seeing if we can't build something?"
And they took a risk because I was 21 years old and I hadn't really done anything outside of college. And as soon as I graduated, I drove across the country and moved here in Nashville. So the early days were a lot of idealism mixed with a lot of disillusionment. I came to Nashville believing we were going to basically eliminate HIV and AIDS off of the continent of Africa. We were going to provide water for everyone. Everything was going to be different, and that we were capable of doing this. There were a lot of dreams and a lot of conversations. The Jars of Clay guys had already announced that we were going to be doing the 1,000 Wells Project, which was to provide 1,000 communities with access to safe water across Africa. And I thought maybe we should just try like the 5 well project or the 10 well project, because 1,000 is ridiculous and so big. And Dan told me, he said, Jena, 1,000 is a number that only God is comfortable with. And so if we reach that someday, we'll know that it was of God and not of ourselves. And so that was the vision, that was the commitment to say, we know that we're in over our heads. We know that we've been given this mission that is bigger than anything we can do on our own. And so I had to spend a lot of time in Africa learning, listening, trying to understand, why is it that girls and women are spending all of their hours in the day walking to get water, and the water that they're getting isn't even safe. It's contaminated, filled with bacteria, and then they use it for cooking and cleaning and drinking, and then their children under the age of 5 are dying from diarrhea. And so there were all kinds of questions and learning that we had to do ourselves, for myself, for the band, and for the organization, to be able to even understand how are we going to make a difference in this huge issue, this huge challenge.
Dedicated board members. I know. So this is all your stuff for Ocean Reef.
Okay.
It's
Bloodwater's made this pretty significant transition over the last 6 months. For the first several years of the organization, we've been what we call Bloodwater 1.0, which is basically the full startup of the organization. And the way that we've grown over the years has really brought us into a whole new experience and place as an organization, and we're calling it Bloodwater 2.0. So it's a busy week, and I can't do all of it by myself, and I have an incredible team who are doing basically all of the work, and I just go around and encourage them. Get back to work. So this is kind of perfect because this is essentially where all of the activity on the US side is happening. So we've got a mix of the Jars of Clay guys, Bloodwater staff. Hey everyone. Great.
Yeah.
Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
I know. Our team gathers every morning at 11:15 for a short prayer, but just an opportunity for all of us to come together, see each other, circle around, and pray. The reminder that it's not us that are doing the work, but we are dependent on God's strength and guidance.
I've always looked at Jena, and the thing that I've loved about her maybe most in working with her with Bloodwater is that she's always willing to learn. It's always a fine balance between serving somebody and then stripping them of their dignity. And what I know of Jena is that there are no ways to separate that. When she goes to a community, she's there to help serve the people and provide dignity in the conversations she has, in the ways that she relates to them.
So thank you for having us in your home and allowing us to come and see.
There's this community in Zambia. It's a peri-urban area. It's pretty poor, and they have been struggling with cholera every year. So their family members, their kids getting sick every year because of a waterborne disease, because of lack of sanitation. They don't have regular places to use the bathroom, and people are getting sick. The name of this community has been Chapulu Kusu, which literally means cursed. And it's something that the community actually had believed that was a name that they deserved. It was a name that really spoke to their condition. The work of Bloodwater, through our local partner there, had been working in providing community health promotion, building latrines, providing biosand filters so that community members could use the water that they already have, but filter it through a sand structure that provides clean water for them. And eventually, after a lot of work and a lot of community effort, a lot of work on Bloodwater's part, the community no longer had a case of cholera. And it was transformational. Their health was better, their spirits were better, everything about their own ability to see that they can change the conditions of their own community. It was remarkable. So the leaders of the community actually went to file their name and change it from cursed, the Chapulukusu, to Mapalo, which means blessed. My faith has had a lot of ups and downs along the way. I think I had a really clear vision of I'm on a mission from God to do this, and then kept hitting brick walls, and then go back to God and be like, what's going on? I thought you said you wanted me to do this, but clearly you're making it very difficult for me to do this. I struggled with a lot of doubt about God's own blessing in our work and world. Especially when people would die in the places where we were trying to serve. And death is something that's a lot more common for these communities that we know and love in Africa. And it's not just death, but it's the brokenness of every single person, myself included. And so I thought that God was, because God had called me to this, he was going to just chart the path forward, and we all have to learn the realities of what it is really like to navigate a broken world. And it brought a lot of paralysis, it brought a lot of pain, but also a lot of motivation to want to come back to the U.S. and tell that story.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bloodwater Mission Executive Director Jena Nardella and Jars of Clay, Dan Haseltine.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks. Wow, it is amazing to be here tonight, to see your faces and to just have you celebrate with us.
While we're looking down, holding on to hearts still wounded.
It's been remarkable to see what has happened over the last really 8 or 9 years. We achieved the 1,000 Wells Project, so we were able to celebrate 1,000 communities in AIDS-affected communities in Africa that now have access to safe water. That was no small thing, and it was over 11, 12 different countries. I mean, 8 years in it, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface. But it requires this commitment every day, both within staff and our board, our donors, the people who are out there making sacrifices in the US, and then all of our partners in Africa who are doing the day in and day out work. That's what makes this story successful.
I think that there's always a motivation to err on the side of love when you read the gospel, when you actually take seriously the words that Jesus put forth for us.
The work that I'm in HIV/AIDS, in water, in poverty, and in the conversations that we have in the US about Africa, the first question that always comes up is, well, what did they do for them to deserve it? You know, were they sexually promiscuous? Did they squander their money? Are they drinking? Are they corrupt? And it says to me that we actually don't really believe in unconditional love if we're asking the judgment questions first, versus, well, how can I love this person? Because it's been extended to me. How do I become an outpouring of that in my life? I believe everybody has a specific calling from God, a vocation that they ought to live into in the world, something that is contributing to God's redeeming work in the world. And it doesn't mean that you go and start a nonprofit with a rock band that's addressing AIDS in Africa. That was my story. It's not the story that the world needs everyone to be doing. It's the daily commitment to where you are, where your feet are today. What is it? Who is it that you ought to serve?